They say pregnant women need love and protection. I believed that, until I realized my company saw maternity as a liability to eliminate. 10 days before my first baby shower, I was called into HR. 10 minutes later, I walked out, unemployed, humiliated, with nothing left to lose. They didn't know I had one card stronger than all their executive chairs combined. The man lying beside me every night. And he'd been waiting for exactly this moment. My name is Olivia Grant. And for 8 years, I was the perfect employee. The one who arrived first, left last, and never said no to a project. At 32, I'd built my career at Delta Core Innovations from the ground up, starting as a junior communications associate and climbing to internal communications director. The Austin tech scene was brutal, but I'd thrived in it until my body decided to do something I'd been praying for since I was 28. The 2 pink lines appeared on a Tuesday morning in March. After 4 years of trying, 3 miscarriages, and more fertility treatments than I could count, I was finally pregnant. Mason had held me as I sobbed in our bathroom, both of us afraid to believe it was real. I hid it well at first. The morning sickness I blamed on food poisoning, the exhaustion I masked with extra coffee, the growing bump I concealed under blazers that got progressively larger. By month 5, though, even my best tailoring couldn't hide the truth anymore. Delta Core had just gone through a merger with Nexus Digital, bringing in a new executive team that spoke in spreadsheets and viewed employees as line items. The warmth of our original startup culture evaporated overnight. Pictures of employees' families disappeared from desks. The nursing room was converted to a storage closet. The flexible work-from-home policy became mandatory in office presence. Our new CEO, Wade Chalmers, was the kind of man who wore his MBA like armor and his misogyny like cologne. During his first all-hands, he'd said, "We need to trim the fat and keep only those who can give 110% to this company." His eyes had lingered on me and 2 other visibly pregnant women in the audience. I should have seen it coming. Mason noticed the changes before I did. Every evening, he'd listen to my stories about the office, his jaw tightening imperceptibly. People thought he was just another software engineer at a local firm. Steady, supportive, unremarkable. They had no idea he spent his days analyzing market movements and acquisition targets from his home office, running Orion West Partners with the precision of a chess grandmaster. "They're setting you up," he'd said one night, watching me review my performance metrics for the 3rd time. My numbers were flawless. Employee engagement up 34%. Internal communication efficiency improved by 50%. Crisis response time cut in half. "I'm irreplaceable," I'd argued, rubbing my growing belly. "I've built their entire internal structure." Mason had pulled me close, his voice soft against my hair. "No one's irreplaceable to people like that. Liv. Especially not a pregnant woman who'll need maternity leave." I'd pushed away his concerns, convinced that 8 years of loyalty meant something, that the programs I'd created, the culture I'd helped build, the late nights and sacrificed weekends would count for something. The week before, everything changed. I'd organized the town hall announcing our 3rd quarter profits, up 40% thanks to strategies I'd helped implement. Wade had stood at that podium, taking credit for the cultural transformation I'd orchestrated, while making snide remarks about certain team members who might not be able to maintain pace with our growth trajectory. Rachel from accounting had squeezed my hand afterward. She'd been let go 3 weeks later, 2 days after announcing her 2nd pregnancy. But I was different, I told myself. I was essential. The morning of the incident, I'd worn my favorite navy dress, the one that made me feel powerful despite my swollen ankles. My baby shower invitations had gone out the week before, a small gathering planned in the office conference room, nothing elaborate. Sarah from HR had even helped me plan it. The same Sarah who would hand me my termination papers 3 hours later. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. The sudden exclusion from strategic meetings, the transition of my projects to junior staff for development purposes, the way Wade's assistant avoided eye contact when scheduling my performance review. But when you're 5 months pregnant with a miracle baby, working at a company you've bled for, you see what you want to see. You believe in the maternity leave policy you helped write. You trust the people who smiled at your announcement. You don't realize you're already dead to them, just another risk to be managed, another cost to be cut. You don't know that your husband has been watching, waiting, preparing for exactly this moment. The call came at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Olivia, could you stop by, HR? Just a quick chat. Sarah's voice was artificially bright, the way it got when she had to deliver bad news. I saved the employee newsletter I'd been drafting, an article about our new parental leave benefits, ironically, and made my way down the hall. My hand instinctively went to my belly where my daughter had been kicking all morning. Wade Chalmers was already there, sitting behind Sarah's desk like he owned it. Which, technically, he did. Sarah stood by the window, not meeting my eyes, a manila folder clutched against her chest like a shield. Olivia, please sit, Wade said, gesturing to the chair across from him. The same chair where I'd interviewed candidates, where I'd counseled struggling employees, where I'd built 8 years of my life. I'll stand, I said. Something in his smile told me I'd want to leave quickly. As you wish. He leaned back, fingers steepled. I'll be direct. We're restructuring the communications department. Your position has been eliminated, effective immediately. The words hit me like ice water, but I kept my face neutral. 8 years of corporate poker had taught me that much. I see. And my team? Will be absorbed into marketing, more efficient that way. My projects? The employee engagement program, the crisis communication protocols. Already transitioned. His smile widened. You trained your team well. They'll manage fine without you. Without me. The words echoed in my head as Sarah finally stepped forward, sliding the folder across the desk. Your severance package, 2 weeks' pay, continuation of health insurance through the end of the month. That's illegal, I said quietly. The pregnancy discrimination. What discrimination? Wade interrupted smoothly. This is a simple restructuring. Your pregnancy has nothing to do with it, though I must say, the timing is fortunate. Now you can focus on what really matters, being a mother. The condescension dripped from his words like poison. I opened the folder, scanning the document. They'd been thorough. Every line crafted to protect them, to silence me. The severance was conditional on signing an NDA and agreeing not to pursue legal action. I need time to review this with my lawyer. Of course, you have until 5 p.m. Security will escort you to collect your belongings. Security. 8 years. And I needed security to walk me out like a criminal. I stood, keeping my spine straight despite the trembling in my legs. My baby shower. It's next week. Sarah finally looked at me, shame flickering across her face. I'm sorry, Olivia. We'll have to cancel the conference room booking. I almost laughed. Of course they would. The walk to my office felt endless. Colleagues averted their eyes, already informed of my departure. The security guard, Tom, who I'd bought coffee for every Friday, looked apologetic as he watched me pack 8 years into a cardboard box. My awards, the thank you cards from employees I'd helped, the ultrasound photo I'd finally felt safe enough to display, all of it swept into a box like evidence of a life that no longer mattered. 5 minutes, Tom said gently. I nodded, pulling up my personal email on my phone. My fingers flew across the screen, sending quick messages to key contacts, downloading files I'd need. They could take my job, but they couldn't take my network. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into hell. Other employees stepped out when they saw me, the pregnant woman with the cardboard box and the security escort, the scarlet letter of corporate America, the terminated employee. In the parking garage, Tom helped me load the box into my car. This is bullshit, Olivia, he whispered. Everyone knows it. Thanks, Tom. I managed to smile. Take care of yourself. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the building where I'd given everything. My phone buzzed with messages, colleagues expressing shock, friends offering support. I ignored them all except one. Mason. On my way home, don't sign anything. I drove home on autopilot, muscle memory navigating while my mind reeled. The house was quiet when I arrived. I set the box on the kitchen counter and stood there, staring at it. 8 years, reduced to a single box. When Mason walked in 20 minutes later, I was still standing there. He took one look at me and pulled me into his arms. I didn't cry. I was too angry for tears. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. Every word, every smirk, every casual cruelty. He listened in silence, his arms tightening around me with each detail. When I finished, he pulled back to look at me. His usually warm brown eyes had gone cold, calculating. It was a look I'd only seen once before, when his father had called, drunk and broken, after losing everything to a hostile takeover. "They sent the severance agreement to your email?" I nodded. "Forward it to me." He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "And Liv? Don't sign it. Don't sign anything. Mason, we need the health insurance." "No." His voice was firm. "We don't need anything from them." He walked to his office, and I heard him making calls, his voice low and intense. When he came back an hour later, he found me in the nursery we'd spent months preparing, sitting in the rocking chair we'd bought just last week. "Liv," he said, kneeling beside me. "Do you trust me?" "Always." "Then listen carefully. They think they've won. They think you'll disappear quietly. Another pregnant woman bullied out of tech." He took my hands. "But they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Mason, what are you? It's time I told you the truth about Orion West Partners. And it's time we discussed what happens when someone hurts my family." The baby kicked, hard, as if she understood. "They wanted you gone." Mason's smile was sharp as a blade. "They're about to learn what gone really means." Mason led me to his office, a room I rarely entered, respecting his need for private workspace. Tonight, he powered on 3 monitors I didn't know existed, revealing dashboards filled with market data, company valuations, and acquisition pipelines. "Sit," he said gently, pulling up a chair beside his. "It's time you knew everything." The main screen showed a portfolio worth $847 million. My breath caught. "Mason, what?" "My father built Peterson Manufacturing from nothing," he began, his fingers dancing across the keyboard. 30 years of his life. Then, when I was 16, a private equity firm convinced him to take on investors. Within 2 years, they'd forced him out, stripped the company for parts, and left him with nothing but debt and a broken heart. He pulled up a photo, his father, gray and defeated, standing in front of a foreclosure notice. He died thinking he was a failure. Heart attack at 54. Mason's voice was steady, but his knuckles were white. "I was at Stanford, studying software engineering like a good son. But after the funeral, I changed my focus. Finance, corporate law, acquisition strategies." The screen shifted to show Orion West Partners Incorporation documents, dated 8 years ago. "The same week you started at DeltaCore, I founded Orion. You thought I was coding at startups, but I was learning, watching, building capital through small tech acquisitions, flipping distressed companies, creating a war chest." 8 years? My voice came out strangled. "You've been lying to me for 8 years?" He turned to face me fully. "Not lying. Protecting. You loved DeltaCore, Liv. You believed in it. How could I tell you I was in the business of dismantling companies like yours? But you didn't. No. Because you were happy. Because they treated you well. Because I promised myself I'd only hunt companies that deserved it." His eyes hardened. "Guess what? DeltaCore just qualified." He pulled up another screen. DeltaCore's corporate structure, financial statements, investor breakdown. I've been monitoring them since the merger. Wade Chalmers has a pattern. 3 previous companies, same playbook, acquire, cut female employees during restructuring, boost short-term profits, exit with a golden parachute. The man's made $32 million destroying workplace cultures. My hand went to my belly. The other pregnant women. Rachel. Patricia. Jennifer from Dallas office. 17 women in 6 months, all either pregnant or returning from maternity leave. He showed me a spreadsheet, meticulously documented. Your friend in legal, Amanda, she's been sending me information. She thought she was helping a journalism contact investigate workplace discrimination. You've been investigating my company? I've been protecting my wife. His voice was fierce. Even if you never needed it, I was ready. But now? He pulled up Delta Corp's stock price. Now they've declared war. I stared at the data, pieces clicking into place. Their stock dropped 12% last quarter. Because Wade's cutting muscle, not fat. The people he's firing, they're the ones who actually knew how to run the company. He's creating a house of cards. Mason pulled up a new document. Delta Corp has $30 million in debt. Their biggest client contract expires in 3 months, and Wade just eliminated the team that manages that relationship. My team. Exactly. He smiled, cold and calculating. They're vulnerable, live, bleeding out slowly. All they need is someone to accelerate the process. You want to destroy them? No. He pulled up acquisition models. I want to buy them. Hostile takeover. Strip Wade and his cronies of their power, their money, their reputation. Then rebuild it correctly. Mason, we can't afford. Orion can. I've been preparing for something like this my entire adult life. We have the capital, the connections, and now, he gestured to me, we have the moral imperative. I stood, pacing to the window. The Austin skyline glittered, Delta Corp's building visible in the distance. This is insane. This is justice. He joined me, hands on my shoulders. They think pregnancy makes you weak. Let's show them it makes you dangerous. How? He walked back to his desk, pulling up a contact list. First, we build a case. You have 8 years of internal knowledge. Every weakness, every skeleton, every place they cut corners. We document everything. That's public information once you're no longer an employee. You signed NDAs about proprietary technology, not about corporate culture and management practices. He'd already reviewed my contracts. Of course he had. Second, we need allies. How many employees have they wronged? How many would testify about discrimination, hostile work environment, wrongful termination? I thought of Rachel's tears, Patricia's rage, the quiet resignations of so many talented women. Dozens. Third, we destabilize, media attention on their discrimination. Complaints to the labor board, shareholder questions about why they're losing talent. He pulled up a timeline. We make them weak. Then, when they're desperate, Orion makes an offer. Through shell companies? 7 layers of separation. They won't know it's us until it's too late. He turned to me. But Liv, this only works if you're all in. Once we start, there's no stopping. They'll fight back. It'll get ugly. I thought of Wade's smirk, Sarah's shame, the security escort, the canceled baby shower, the 2 weeks severance for 8 years of my life. Then I thought of my daughter, kicking inside me, the world she'd grow up in, the message I wanted to send her about standing up to bullies. When do we start? Mason smiled, the real smile I fell in love with, warm and dangerous. I made some calls while you were in the nursery. 3 former Delta Corp employees are ready to meet tomorrow. A journalist at the Austin Business Journal wants an anonymous source about tech discrimination. And he pulled up an email. Wade's biggest investor just responded to my inquiry about buying a significant stake. You already started? The moment they hurt you, they started. I'm just returning the favor. He cupped my face. They thought they were firing a pregnant woman. They actually lit a fuse. I kissed him, fierce and grateful. How long have you been waiting for this? My whole life, he admitted. But I never had a good enough reason. Until now. The baby kicked again, and we both felt it. Okay, I said. Let's burn it down. And rebuild it better, he agreed. Ready to become the most dangerous unemployed pregnant woman in Austin? I smiled for the first time since leaving Delta Corps. Absolutely. The war room was set up in our dining room within 48 hours. Whiteboards covered in corporate structure diagrams, financial projections, and timeline matrices. Mason had brought in 2 associates from Orion, people I thought were his coding buddies, but turned out to be a former Goldman Sachs analyst and an M&A attorney. Delta Corps' vulnerability is here. Mason pointed to a red circle on the diagram. They have a $30 million credit line that comes due in 6 weeks. If they can't renew it, they'll need emergency funding. Which is where we come in, said David, the analyst, pulling up his laptop. Through Cascade Ventures, which is owned by Meridian Holdings, which is a subsidiary of 7 Layers, I interrupted, now fluent in Mason's strategy. They won't trace it back to Orion. Mason nodded, proud. We've already acquired 8% through various channels, small blocks, nothing to trigger SEC filing requirements. My phone buzzed. Rachel, my pregnant colleague who'd been fired. The Austin Business Journal article just went live. I pulled it up on the main screen. Pattern of pregnancy discrimination at Austin tech firm. The article was careful, factual, citing multiple sources and documented patterns. No company names yet, but anyone in Austin tech would recognize Delta Corps' profile. Wade's probably having his morning coffee right now, Mason observed, checking his watch. In about 10 minutes, the board will start calling. How do you know? He smiled. Because I had breakfast with Harold Brennan yesterday, Delta Corps' longest-serving board member. Fascinating conversation about fiduciary responsibility and shareholder value. The depth of his preparation astounded me, every move calculated months in advance, waiting for the right moment. Speaking of shareholders, David pulled up a new screen. The pension fund that owns 12% is concerned about the article. They're considering their position. Concerned enough to sell? At the right price. David's grin was sharp, which, coincidentally, Cascade Ventures just offered. My laptop chimed with an encrypted message from Amanda, still inside Delta Corps. Emergency all-hands meeting in an hour. Wade's bringing in crisis management. Perfect. Mason turned to me. Ready for Phase 2? Phase 2 was psychological warfare. I'd compiled 8 years of Wade's emails, the barely legal ones he'd sent before he knew better. Comments about breeding seasons when multiple employees announced pregnancies. The time he'd suggested putting the pumping room in the basement, so we don't have to hear the cows. We don't release these, Mason explained. We just make sure he knows we have them. How? Remember his assistant, Marcus, the one he treats like furniture? Mason pulled up an email. Marcus just got a job offer from a competing firm. His exit interview should be comprehensive. The beauty of Mason's strategy was its elegance. No single attack, but 1,000 paper cuts. Each day brought new pressure. Monday. A key developer quit, taking 3 team members with him. Tuesday. The EEOC announced they were opening an investigation into discrimination complaints. Wednesday. Their biggest client requested a meeting about cultural concerns. Thursday. Stock price dropped 8% on rumors of internal turmoil. Friday. 3 board members requested an emergency meeting. I watched from our war room, my belly growing rounder as Delta Corps grew weaker. The other women who'd been wronged became our allies, sharing information, filing complaints, telling their stories to carefully selected journalists. We're not destroying the company, I explained to Rachel over tea. We're excising the cancer. What about the employees who still work there? They'll be fine. Better, actually. I showed her our post-acquisition plan. First day, Wade and his team are out. Second day, reinstate everyone wrongfully terminated with back pay. Third day, implement actual family-friendly policies. Rachel's eyes widened. You're serious. Dead serious. Mason's phone rang. He listened, smiled, and hung up. That was Brennan. The board wants Wade to find a buyer before the credit line comes due. And Wade's reaching out to private equity firms, vultures who'll strip the company for parts. He pulled up a new screen. But Cascade Ventures just made a preemptive offer. 15% above market value. That's generous. It's strategic. The board can't refuse without violating fiduciary duty. But Wade will fight it. How? He'll try to find a higher bidder. He'll stall. He'll manipulate the numbers. Mason's smile was predatory. He'll do exactly what I expect him to do. The next week was a chess match. Wade brought in investment bankers, tried to create a bidding war. But mysteriously, every potential buyer found problems. One discovered accounting irregularities. Another had concerns about talent retention. A third simply walked away after their due diligence team, led by a contractor who happened to be David's roommate, found cultural issues. You're orchestrating all of this, I said, watching Wade's increasingly desperate emails to the board. I'm just ensuring they have complete information, Mason replied innocently. Due diligence is so important. The turning point came when Wade tried to get dirty. He had someone call my old references, trying to dig up dirt to discredit the discrimination claims. He hired a private investigator to follow former employees. He even suggested to the board that I was a disgruntled worker seeking revenge. He just made this personal, Mason said, reading the investigator's report on me. Again. What do? We end it. He made a single phone call. Released the Kraken. Within hours, Wade's previous 3 companies were trending on social media. Former employees sharing their stories, the same pattern, over and over. The Wall Street Journal picked it up, then Forbes, then CNN. Delta Core stock is in free fall, David reported. Down 30% in after-hours trading. The board? I asked. Emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Mason pulled up the shareholder registry. Between Cascade and allied investors, we control 31%. The pension fund's 12% will swing our way. Wade needs 51% to block the sale. He won't get it, David confirmed. I've been counting votes. He's got maybe 35%, maximum. Mason stood, walked to me, and kissed my forehead. Tomorrow, we buy your company. Our company, I corrected. Our company, he agreed. How does it feel? I thought about it, hand on my 7-month belly, feeling my daughter kick. Like justice. Just wait, he promised. The best part is yet to come. The collapse came faster than even Mason had predicted. Monday morning, I sat in our war room, watching Delta Core's internal communications through Amanda's carefully forwarded emails. The all-hands meeting was a disaster. Wade, sweating through his Italian suit, tried to reassure employees that everything was fine. The stock price, displayed on the conference room screen behind him, dropped another 5% while he was speaking. It's like watching a building implode in slow motion, David said, monitoring the trading volumes. Institutional investors are dumping shares. Panic selling, Mason confirmed, not looking up from his 3 screens. Wade has maybe 72 hours before the board forces a sale. My phone buzzed. Sarah from HR, the same woman who'd helped fire me. Her text was brief. I'm sorry. If you know anything about what's happening, please. We're terrified. I showed it to Mason. The employees don't deserve this chaos. No, they don't. He pulled up a document, which is why I had David draft this. It was a letter of intent, guaranteeing all current employees, except executive management, would retain their positions post-acquisition. More than that, it promised back pay for wrongfully terminated employees and improved benefits. Leak it, he said. Let them know a better future is possible. I forwarded it to Amanda, who accidentally CC'd the entire company on her reply. Within an hour, Delta Core's internal Slack was exploding. Employees were openly discussing the acquisition, and more importantly, they were supporting it. Tuesday brought the journalists. The Wall Street Journal ran a deep dive. The systematic purge of pregnant women in tech. Delta Core was the centerpiece, with Wade's photo prominent. His previous companies were detailed extensively, the same pattern, the same victims, the same golden parachutes. He's trying to negotiate his exit package, Mason said, reading a forwarded board communication. Wants $15 million to step down quietly. After what he did, he knows he's finished. This is about salvaging what he can. Mason made a call. Harold? Yes, I saw his demand. Counter with this. He leaves with nothing. Or we release the full investigation file to the SEC. What investigation file? Mason smiled. The one David's been compiling on Wade's interesting stock trading patterns. Seems he had a habit of shorting company stock right before announcing layoffs. That's insider trading. Allegedly. But the SEC loves to investigate these things. Thoroughly. For years. Wednesday. Wade blinked. He agreed to resign with a standard severance, 2 weeks' pay, the same package he'd given me. Poetic, I said. We're not done. Mason pulled up Delta Core's organizational chart. His entire leadership team needs to go. The exodus began that afternoon. The CFO, who'd signed off on the discriminatory layoffs, the head of HR, who'd implemented them, the VP of operations, who'd converted the pumping room to storage. One by one. They negotiated their exits as the board, facing shareholder revolt and media scrutiny, prepared to vote on Cascade's acquisition offer. They're rats fleeing a sinking ship, Amanda reported from inside. Middle management is openly celebrating. Thursday was quiet. Too quiet. Wade's planning something, Mason said, pacing. He's been too easy to defeat. The answer came at 3 p.m. A lawsuit filed in Delaware Court of Chancery. Wade was claiming the acquisition was fraudulent, that Cascade Ventures was a shell company designed to devalue Delta Core for a hostile takeover. He's not wrong, I pointed out. No, but he can't prove it. Mason pulled up the corporate structure. 7 layers, remember? Different jurisdictions, different regulations. It would take months to unravel. And he has. He checked his watch. 18 hours before the board votes. So why fight? Desperation. He's trying to force a settlement. More money to go away quietly. Mason's phone rang. Yes. I see. No. We don't negotiate with terrorists. File the countersuit. What countersuit? Defamation, tortious interference, and... He smiled. Pregnancy discrimination, on your behalf. Mason, I haven't filed. You have now. David's wife is an employment attorney. She's been preparing the case for weeks. Wade just gave us the perfect opportunity to file it. The legal maneuvering consumed Thursday night. I dozed on the couch, 8 months pregnant and exhausted, while Mason and his team worked. I woke to David's celebration at 2 a.m. Wade withdrew the lawsuit. What happened? Mason looked tired but triumphant. His lawyers explained what discovery would mean. Every email, every text, every communication would become evidence, including some very interesting messages between him and his mistress about getting rid of the breeding cows. His mistress, the VP of marketing, who's also pregnant, ironically, and just filed her own discrimination suit. Friday, the day of the vote, I couldn't sit still. Mason had left early for preparations, leaving me to pace our living room, watching CNBC's coverage of Delta Core's emergency board meeting. The board has been in session for 3 hours, the reporter said. Sources indicate an acquisition offer is being considered, though the buyer remains unknown. My phone rang. Mason. Turn on your computer. Log into the Delta Core board portal. I don't have access. You do now. Amanda gave us her credentials. You should see this. I logged in and found myself watching a live stream of the boardroom. Wade was at the table, looking haggard. The board members appeared exhausted. Harold Brennan was speaking. The vote is unanimous. We accept Cascade Ventures' offer. Wade slammed his hand on the table. You don't even know who they are. We know they're offering $42 per share for a stock trading at 28. We know they've guaranteed employee retention. We know they've committed to honoring all contracts. Brennan looked directly at Wade. And we know you've failed as CEO. This is a mistake. The only mistake was hiring you. Brennan turned to the room, motioned to accept the acquisition and terminate Mr. Chalmers effective immediately. Seconded, all in favor. Every hand raised except Wade's. I watched Wade gather his things, his face purple with rage. As he reached the door, Brennan called out, "Oh, Wade, security will escort you out. Company policy for terminated executives." The same humiliation he'd inflicted on me returned tenfold. "It's done," Mason said softly. "We own Delta Core." "What now?" "Now? Now you get to rebuild it the right way." I sat back, hand on my belly, feeling my daughter kick. The company that had tried to destroy me for getting pregnant was now mine. The poetic justice was overwhelming. "Mason." "Yes?" "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "Monday morning, you have a company to run." "We have a company to run," I corrected. "No," he said firmly. "This one's yours, Liv. I just cleared the path. What you build now, that's your legacy." I smiled, thinking of walking back into that building, past the security desk where Tom had escorted me out, up to the executive floor where Wade had destroyed my career. "Our daughter's going to have one hell of a story about her mother," I said. "Yes." Mason agreed. "She will." Monday morning arrived with Austin's typical March sunshine. I stood in front of Delta Core's building, 8 months pregnant, wearing the same navy dress I'd worn the day they fired me. Mason stood beside me, along with David and the legal team. "Ready?" Mason asked. "I've been ready for 6 weeks." The lobby went silent when we entered. Tom, the security guard, stood from his desk, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and then something like joy. "Ms. Grant? Good morning, Tom. These gentlemen are with me. But you need badges." I smiled. "Tom, as of 9 a.m. this morning, Cascade Ventures owns Delta Core, and I'm the interim CEO." The whispers started immediately, rippling through the lobby like wildfire. Employees pulled out their phones, texting frantically. By the time we reached the elevator, a small crowd had gathered. The executive floor was nearly empty. Wade's office, the corner suite with the view of the Capitol, had been cleared out over the weekend. I walked past it to the boardroom where the remaining leadership team waited. They looked like prisoners awaiting execution. The CFO, 2 VPs who'd survived the exodus, and Sarah from HR, whose face went white when she saw me. "Good morning," I said, taking Wade's former seat at the head of the table. "Let's discuss your futures." Mason and David flanked me, tablets ready. I opened my folder, containing 8 weeks of documentation. "Richard," I addressed the CFO, "you signed off on 17 wrongful terminations in 6 months. You have 2 options. Resign immediately with standard severance, or wait for the forensic accounting team to finish their review of your expense reports." His face flushed. "You can't threaten." "I'm not threatening. I'm informing, David." David pulled up a spreadsheet. 300,000 in questionable expenses. Dinners at strip clubs categorized as client meetings. First-class flights for your wife marked as assistant travel. "Standard severance," Richard said quickly. "I'll sign today." One by one, I went through the list. Those who'd actively participated in discrimination were given the same choice: leave quietly or face consequences. Those who'd been complicit through silence were offered a different path. "Sarah," I said finally, "you helped plan my baby shower. Then you fired me." Tears ran down her face. "I had no choice," Wade said. "There's always a choice. But I'm offering you one now. Stay, help rebuild this culture, and spend the next year proving you've learned, or leave. Decide by end of day." The meeting ended in 20 minutes. 4 resignations, 2 decisions pending. Mason squeezed my hand under the table. Now the real work begins, he said. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for noon. The main conference room was packed, with overflow watching from their desks. I stood at the podium where Wade had announced my termination just weeks ago. My name is Olivia Grant, I began. 6 weeks ago, I was fired from this company for being pregnant. Today, I'm your CEO. The room erupted. Applause, gasps, some tears. I waited for quiet. Delta Corps has lost its way. You've watched talented colleagues disappear. You've seen policies that protected you vanish. You've worked in fear instead of innovation. I paused. That ends now. I outlined the immediate changes. All wrongfully terminated employees would be offered their positions back with back pay. The nursing room would be restored and expanded. Flexible work policies reinstated. Parental leave extended to 6 months for all parents. But more than policies, we're changing culture. Discrimination has no place here. Fear has no place here. Wade Chalmers and his ideology have no place here. Marcus, Wade's former assistant, started clapping. Others joined. Soon the entire room was on its feet. Questions? Hands shot up. Is it true you bought the company? Cascade Ventures bought the company. I'm merely running it. Will there be more layoffs? No. We're hiring back everyone who was wrongfully terminated, and we'll need more talent to fill the gaps left by departing executives. What about our benefits? Enhanced, not reduced. Details coming this week. Amanda raised her hand. What about Wade? I smiled. Mr. Chalmers is pursuing other opportunities. I hear the job market is tough for executives with discrimination lawsuits pending. The room laughed, tension finally breaking. After the meeting, I made my rounds, every department, every floor, listening to stories, hearing concerns, promising change. By 3 p.m., my feet were swollen and my back ached, but I wasn't done. Rachel waited in my new office, Wade's former space. She was crying. The offer letter, she managed. Full reinstatement, back pay, and... She held up a second paper. Daycare subsidy? We're partnering with 3 local centers, full subsidy for all employees. She hugged me, both our pregnant bellies making it awkward. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, all of us who spoke up. As the day wound down, I stood at the window, looking out at Austin's skyline. Mason appeared beside me, wrapping his arms around me from behind. How does it feel? Surreal. Like I'm going to wake up and be unemployed again. The board wants to make your position permanent, he said. No more interim. I'm about to have a baby. So? We'll have the best parental leave policy in tech. You'd be crazy not to use it. He kissed my temple. Besides, you've got good people. They can handle things while you're gone. Sarah knocked on the door. Olivia, I've made my decision. I turned, waiting. I want to stay. I want to help fix what I helped break. She straightened. If you'll have me. I studied her for a long moment. Probationary period. You report directly to me. And Sarah? The first time you compromise your integrity for anyone, you're gone. Understood. As she left, Mason chuckled. You're scarier than Wade ever was. No, I corrected. I'm just fair. That's what makes it terrifying to people like him. The sun was setting as we prepared to leave. Tom was still at his desk, grinning every time he saw me. Ms. Grant? One thing? Yes. Tom? Your baby shower, the one that got canceled, the team wants to throw you a new one. Here, if that's okay. I felt tears threaten for the first time all day. That would be wonderful. Walking to the car, Mason asked. Any regrets? I thought about Wade, probably raging in his empty mansion, his executives, scrambling for new jobs with ruined reputations. The company they'd tried to destroy, now stronger under new leadership. Just one, I said. What's that? I wish I could have seen Wade's face when he found out who really owned Cascade Ventures. Mason laughed. Actually, he pulled out his phone, showing me a video, security footage from the boardroom. Wade, purple-faced, screaming at his lawyers when they explained the connection. You recorded it. Harold Brennan sent it, called it a welcome gift for the new CEO. I watched Wade's meltdown, feeling my daughter kick as if she too enjoyed the show. Come on, Mason said, opening the car door. Let's go home. You've got a company to run and a baby to prepare for. In that order. In whatever order you choose, you're the boss now. As we drove away, I looked back at the Delta Core building. My building now. In 6 weeks, I'd gone from terminated to triumphant. And the best part? This was just the beginning. The baby shower happened 3 weeks later, in the same conference room where I'd once been told I was no longer needed. But this time, the room overflowed with genuine celebration. Former employees who'd returned, current staff who'd survived the transition, and even some board members attended. Sarah had organized everything with a determination that felt like penance. My daughter arrived 2 weeks after that, during a board meeting, naturally. I'd been presenting Q2 projections when my water broke. Mason drove me to the hospital while David finished my presentation. Later, he told me the board had never approved a budget so quickly. Emma Grace Grant was born at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday, weighing 7 pounds of pure justice. The real triumph came 6 months later. I stood on the same stage, this time at Austin's Tech Leadership Summit. But instead of hiding my postpartum body under blazers, I wore my exhaustion and baby weight proudly. Emma was backstage with Mason, probably spitting up on his designer suit. A year ago, Delta Core Industries fired me for being pregnant, I began. The audience of 500 tech leaders went silent. Today, that same company has the highest female retention rate in Austin Tech. We have 22 women on parental leave, all guaranteed their exact positions when they return. I clicked through slides showing our transformation. Employee satisfaction up 67%. Productivity increased by 45%. Stock price doubled since the acquisition. And most importantly, zero discrimination complaints. But this isn't about numbers, I continued. It's about Andrea, who delayed pregnancy for 3 years out of fear and is now expecting twins. It's about Marcus, who took paternal leave without worrying about his career. It's about Tom, our security guard, whose daughter just joined our internship program. The presentation showed a photo from last week, our new pumping room, which had become a lactation suite with hospital-grade equipment, comfortable chairs, and a sign that read, "This room used to be storage, now it stores our future." Wade Chalmers once told me that pregnancy was a liability. I said, he was wrong. The liability was leadership that couldn't see strength in creating life while building companies. The audience erupted in applause. Later, 3 other CEOs approached me about implementing similar policies. One admitted she'd been hiding her own pregnancy for 4 months. But the moment that mattered most came that evening. I sat in my office, Wade's former sanctuary, nursing Emma while reviewing resumes. We were hiring again, expanding. The door opened and Mason entered with dinner. Chinese food and a board report, he said. The romance never dies. Speaking of the board, I adjusted Emma's position. They want to rename the company. Oh? Nova Grant Solutions, New Beginnings, they said. Mason sat beside me, watching our daughter eat with the same intensity she'd one day bring to board meetings. What do you think? I think Delta Core needs to own its history, the good and the bad. I pulled up my proposal. Delta Core renewed, same foundation, rebuilt values. The board won't like it. The board doesn't run this company. I do. I smiled. Besides, I want Wade to see his company's name every time we win an award, land a major client, or make headlines for progressive policies. I want him to know what Delta Core could have been if he hadn't been a misogynistic ass. Mason laughed, disturbing Emma, who protested loudly. As I soothed her, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Wade Chalmers settles discrimination lawsuit for undisclosed sum. He's finished, Mason said, reading over my shoulder. No company will touch him now. Good. 6 months later, at Delta Corp's annual investor meeting, I presented our year-end results. Revenue up 30%. We'd landed 3 major government contracts. Our parental leave policy had been featured in Harvard Business Review as a model for tech companies. Any questions? I asked the packed auditorium. An older investor raised his hand. Mrs. Grant, some competitors suggest your focus on family-friendly policies is unsustainable, that it's emotional rather than strategic. I smiled, thinking of the 43 employees who'd returned from parental leave this year, bringing fresh perspectives and fierce loyalty. Of the top talent we'd poached from competitors who wouldn't accommodate working parents. Of Emma, now toddling around my office during late meetings. Sir, in the past 18 months, we've proven that supporting families isn't just moral, it's profitable. Our employees don't leave for competitors offering 20% pay raises because they can't buy what we provide. Dignity, respect, and the ability to be both parents and professionals. I clicked to my final slide, a photo from yesterday's company picnic. Hundreds of employees with their families, children playing while parents networked, not choosing between career and family, but having both. Wade Chalmers thought pregnancy was a weakness to be eliminated. He was wrong. It was the catalyst that transformed this company. I paused, meeting eyes across the room. I was fired for being pregnant. We bought the company for $30 million. Today, it's valued at $90 million. I'd say that's a hell of a return on investment for supporting working mothers. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Later, as Mason and I packed up Emma's toys from my office, he asked, "Any regrets?" I looked around the space where Wade had once ruled through fear, now filled with photos of employee families, children's artwork from our on-site daycare, and a breast pump sitting openly on my desk. Just one, I said. What? That I can only destroy Wade's legacy once. Mason pulled me close, Emma babbling between us. Who says you're done? There are a lot of Wade Chalmers out there. I smiled, thinking of the 3 acquisition targets Orion was evaluating, all companies with suspicious patterns of discrimination. You're right, this was just practice. For what? For changing the world, one toxic CEO at a time. As we walked through Delta Corp's halls, employees waved goodnight, their faces reflecting something I'd never seen during Wade's reign. Hope. Tom saluted from his desk, where he was studying for his business degree, tuition paid by our new education program. You know what the best revenge is? I asked Mason as we loaded Emma into her car seat. Success? No. I looked back at the building where I'd been humiliated, then built an empire. The best revenge is forcing your enemies to watch you thrive with everything they tried to take from you. My phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. Wade Chalmers had viewed my profile. For the 11th time this month, I smiled, kissed my daughter's head, and didn't look back. Sometimes, when you're pushed off a cliff, you don't fall, you fly. And sometimes, you return to burn down everything that tried to destroy you, then build something beautiful from the ashes. They fired me 10 days before my baby shower. 10 months later, I owned their company. And that, as Emma would say when she's older, is how mommy played the game. Thank you for listening to this story of corporate revenge and triumph. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced workplace discrimination? How did you fight back? Your stories matter, and I'd love to hear them in the comments.